This is Rachel. I first met Rachel when I was traveling through East Africa in 2012. We were about the same age and we hit it off right away. Rachel is from the Mathare slum, which is one of Nairobi's oldest and largest informal communities, home to nearly 500,000 people. She was working with a local organization that would teach photography skills to youth as a way to help them find their voice. But another project she was working on was with a group of teenage girls in the slum. Each month, they would come together and make colorful beaded bracelets that they would sell in the local market. They would use this money to buy sanitary pads. They were working together to ensure that there was always a supply available for whoever might need them within their group. This was the first time that I'd thought about this uniquely feminine health issue in a development context, and Rachel's work and the spirit of collaboration demonstrated by these young girls left a lasting impact on me. You won't be surprised to hear that young women are among the world's most vulnerable demographics. You won't be surprised to hear that women often face more challenges than men because they are so often the primary caregivers for their families while trying to survive in a patriarchal system. But it might surprise you to learn that one of the biggest challenges women face is also one of the most natural: her menstrual cycle. Despite the fact that menstruation directly affects every woman in the world, it is a subject that is rarely talked about. And this silence means that menstrual health is often overlooked when it comes to international development programming and humanitarian interventions, causing real consequences for millions of women. A girl's transition into womanhood is often marked by the onset of her menstrual cycle, an occasion that is celebrated in many cultures as an important rite of passage. But in many parts of the world, and in East Africa specifically, it marks the beginning of a lifetime of discomfort, embarrassing health problems, and even harassment. It marks the start of schoolyard bullying, missed days of school, and the start of a lifetime viewed as a sexual object. Menstruation is one of the biggest reasons why girls in developing countries miss school once they reach adolescence. In Kenya, girls will miss an average of 4.5 days each month. This adds up to 20% of the school year. It's like having spring break every month. This deliberate absenteeism puts the girls at a distinct disadvantage compared to her male counterparts. They fall behind, they miss tests and assignments, and often end up dropping out altogether. Literacy rates for girls in East Africa are on average 10 to 15% lower than the boys, with a regional average of 69%. There are a number of reasons why menstruation has such an effect on women's lives. First, there is the issue of poverty. In Kenya, girls will miss an average, the average package of sanitary pads will cost 55 Kenyan shillings. This comes to about 75 cents. And while this might not seem like a significant amount of money, in a country where the average daily wage for unskilled labor is just about double that, it isn't hard to see why buying sanitary pads is so often a luxury for most women. In fact, 90% of women worldwide will rely on using some form of alternative method or homemade pad because it is simply too expensive to be continually purchasing pads each month. The alternative methods that women rely on include using rags, bits of mattress stuffing, tissue, newspaper, leaves, and even mud in the most extreme cases. As you can imagine, these methods are not comfortable, nor are they effective. They are extremely unhygienic and can lead to some really serious health problems. But beyond that, they don't help girls feel comfortable or confident during a week where she is already feeling self-conscious about her body. This is Beatrice. Beatrice is a teacher at a school in the Mathare slum. When we spoke to her about the specific issues that her female students faced, menstruation was at the top of her list. She told us how she saw girls missing more and more school as they got older. They would take days off to work, to make money to buy sanitary pads for themselves and their sisters. They were teased when they had their periods at school and would often leave early because the school just didn't have the facilities necessary for her to clean herself during the day. Beatrice would often use her own money from her very small salary to buy pads for her students in the hopes that the girls would be able to stay in school more often. But the problem runs deeper than extreme poverty. While menstruation is a globally shared experience among women everywhere, It is also an example of a globally stigmatized issue. In many parts of the world, the customs and traditions that surround menstruation are oppressive and destructive and can severely limit a woman's daily life. For example, in rural Kenya, in Maasai regions, girls are forbidden from interacting with livestock, consuming animal products, or preparing food for fear of contamination. In a nomadic culture that relies on livestock for its survival and currency, the message this sends to young women is profound. In communities in India, menstruating girls must not drink from the same water source as her village, and in remote areas of Nepal, the practice of chapati banishes women into isolated huts for the duration of her period, forbidding her from interacting with her community. Again, the messages these customs send to young women is one of shame and embarrassment. These traditions have grown out of a lack of health education. Menstruation is not a dirty word. It is not a disease, it is not a condition, and it is not something to be afraid of. Menstruation should not shame or isolate. Of all the things that oppress women, her own body should never be one of them. But these stigmas are not unique to developing countries. In 2014, Femme International, which is a Canadian organization dedicated to promoting menstrual health education, was removed from a segment on a popular morning news show in Toronto because our content was deemed inappropriate by the producers. Girls are taught from a young age that their cycle is their secret and not something to be openly talked about. We make up names to avoid ever having to say the words period or menstruation. We are visited by Aunt Flo, riding the crimson wave, or experiencing that time of the month. Kotex markets their pads as discreet, with rustle-free packaging to ensure that nobody will know what's going on. How many times have we hidden tampons up our sleeves while going to the bathroom at work or school? It is no secret that an empowered woman is the most effective catalyst for sustainable change. And to address the menstrual taboo is to tackle a root cause of the gender disparity. So how do we do this? What can be done to break down this stigma? I think that there can be a very simple solution: education. When I was completing my postgrad degree at Humber College a few years ago, my colleagues and I truly started to think and brainstorm about how to create an effective solution to the issue of deliberate absenteeism among teenage girls. And as we were doing this, I instantly thought of Rachel and her group of girls in Mathari making bracelets to buy pads. If anyone could help us get a project started, it was her. And so we built an education-based program that not only taught girls the biological reasons behind menstruation, but also general reproductive health and menstrual management. We wanted to use conversation to normalize the subject with the girls and help them feel comfortable to even talk about it. The program also included the distribution of reusable menstrual management products, such as reusable pads or menstrual cups, to remove the financial burden of menstruation. Once the program was complete, we traveled to Nairobi to do a pilot project with Rachel and her group of girls. The workshops we started running proved to be a safe space for the girls to talk and ask questions that they might otherwise be unable to ask. One thing that always stands out to me during the workshops is how quickly the girls open up and begin to share their own personal stories and experiences. For me, this proves that the stigma does not live with the girls it affects, but instead in culturally entrenched traditions that have existed for generations. Stigma and shame are taught, and if we can find a way to break this cycle of learned embarrassment, we can help girls feel confident and empowered every day of the month. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Menstruation is a shared experience among women everywhere. All women understand the inconvenience of an ill-timed cycle, the sharp pains of menstrual cramps, and the frustration of food cravings and mood swings. And yet menstruation is also a globally stigmatized issue. And if we want to change this, it will require the building of a global conversation to change the language surrounding menstruation from negative to positive. To do this, we will need to collaborate on a global scale. We will need to go together. To collaborate is to share insight, experience, and knowledge. It requires a degree of humility to accept input from others, patience to work together, and wisdom to put the information to use in a new context. I'm a big believer in collaboration and working together with organizations and people whenever possible to create the best possible solution to a problem. On May 28, 2014, the world celebrated the first ever Menstrual Hygiene Day, which epitomizes the notion of collaboration among NGOs. Menstrual Hygiene Day was spearheaded by Wash United in Berlin, and they quickly recruited over 100 partners worldwide to take part in building this global conversation. Their intent was to start the conversation to confront the destructive taboos. Many of the events were held online. Twitter chats and Google Hangouts had the hashtag Menstruation Matters trending worldwide and had BuzzFeed and Jezebel writing articles about a subject that is usually only whispered about. Online photo campaigns shared the stories of young women in East Africa and South Asia, sharing their stories of stigma and customs and empowerment. In only 2 years, Menstrual Hygiene Day has become a powerful platform for change based on the spirit of collaboration among NGOs that share a common goal. But beyond the conversations that were started, it connected organizations that were running similar programs, creating many opportunities for collaboration and partnership. The more we talk about menstruation in the news and media, the more normalized the subject will become, and the less power the stigma will hold. For women in Canada, this will mean feeling comfortable to say the word period in public. But for women in East Africa, it can create a world of difference. Menstruation is more and more becoming an acceptable topic to discuss in mainstream news and media, with women becoming fed up with the stigma. Female athletes have spoken candidly on the subject. Poet Rupi Kaur's now famous Instagram shots of her own cycle changed the social network's posting rules on the subject and went viral around the world. Earlier in 2015, the Canadian government finally removed the luxury tax placed on sanitary products after the successful No Tax on Tampons campaign run by a group of women called the Canadian Menstruators. In August, Kiran Gandhi shocked the world when she ran the London Marathon while bleeding freely to make a statement about the menstrual taboo. But for this to truly be a global conversation, everybody needs to have a voice. Men and boys need to be involved in the conversation so they too can help break down the taboos. The boys at Beatrice's school tease the girls because they don't really understand what menstruation is. They see it as this mysterious feminine ailment that affects the girls at their school, something that they whisper about with their friends, something that makes them leave early, and something maybe a little bit scary. And so their natural reaction is to tease. And this affects the girls more than they know. The point is that menstrual health needs to always be included in the larger gender equality conversation. And for this to happen, everybody needs to be comfortable talking about the issue. As I said before, the more we talk about menstruation, the more it is normalized and the less power the stigma will hold. And for women in East Africa, it can create a world of difference. Let's think about that for a minute. If girls are no longer missing a week of school each month, they will be performing better academically. They will graduate with higher marks, and a higher percentage will continue on to post-secondary education. In time, we will see more and more women becoming influential members of her community. When girls are able to attend school without having to worry about something as natural as her menstrual cycle, she is able to take advantage of every opportunity to come her way. Girls who have participated in Femme's programs in East Africa report feeling much more confident in the classroom. They are performing with higher marks and feel less shame about their bodies. When we spoke to teacher Beatrice and asked her if she noticed a difference in her students, she laughed. Yes, she said, the girls are coming to school every day now, and the boys no longer tease the girls. Sometimes the girls will even tease the boys. Rachel has become nothing short of a menstrual health advocate. She is constantly finding new ways to engage her community in the global conversation and runs Femme's programs with women and girls across the city. If we go together, we can break this menstrual taboo one conversation at a time. And in doing so, we will be empowering women and girls, by removing one more barrier and helping them to achieve their potential. So I challenge you today to think about menstruation, to talk about it sometimes, and to definitely not feel ashamed about it. Thank you.